Welcome to Week in Geek, your new comic preview for September 14th. I'm Mike Ortiz.
And I'm the Chris Brown.
So what do you got?
Well, we're still in the thick of it with 52s.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a chance to read some today, too. So I could give a little review today as well here, rather than just a preview. So I'm going to start with Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. Love Jeff Lemire's stuff. I think it's absolutely fantastic. His Animal Man blew me away last week. Incredible.
That was one of the stronger books last week.
And much to your chagrin with the travel form and artwork, as we were just discussing.
Great story.
Now, this Alberto Ponticelli, I think his artwork is fine. I wanted more. I feel like the Animal Man gives me so much in that first issue, so much the way he paces and tells the story. This feels like a lot of setup, and it's going to be monsters fighting monsters. Well, that's fine. You know, the miniseries in Flashpoint, the Frankenstein, the Creatures, the Unknown, was monsters fighting monsters. Yeah. But I actually got them fighting monsters. This is so much setup and so much going on. Ray Palmer is in this book. Oh, wow. They got they've added that kind of element to it a little bit. I'm curious to see where it's going, even though the first issue didn't totally blow me away. Yeah. But I think it didn't blow me away because I was looking for it to. This was the one I was most excited about today. And I sat down and read it and went, God, it's not as good as Animal Man.
That is the problem with expectation.
Yes.
And a lot of these have, I don't know if I want to use the word suffered, but I'll say suffered from the need to put a lot of exposition into an issue 1. So I kind of get it. With some of them, I'll give a shot, give it to issue 2 to like get into the thick of the story. But that's, I guess, sort of the problem with a reboot is you got to give a lot of information to some people who may not be familiar with things. But Animal Man did it in a way that actually fit the story very well.
Phenomenal too, really well done. Now another one that maybe suffers from that, Grifter #1, another book I was really looking forward to. I've always liked the design of that character, regardless of the fact that he's got 90s stink all over him. It's fine. I like that look. I like that bandana on his face. I don't know, he just looks cool to me. And I was really excited about it, and it literally starts at Coal Cash Day 1. Like, it's leading up to him, what was the Damonites. You know, he could sense them. There's some kind of alien invasion going on, almost like an invasion of the body snatchers. They seem to be taking people's bodies. They've selected him, and now he can hear them. As he gets away. I wanted a little more. It kind of has this, it might have been interesting as a TV show because they incorporate some flashbacks, and it would have got you in the middle of some action. He goes crazy on an airplane, he flies out of an airplane, and we cut back. Okay. That could have been, it's missing something for me, but I'm obviously going to give it a second and a third issue, hopefully. But like I said, those expectations get high, and it's kind of hard. Deathstroke #1 this week. I really liked this book, and what I like about this book, while you've got those expectations and you've got all that exposition and all that build-up, it gives you a bunch of exposition. It's setting up, here's what Deathstroke's doing, blah, blah, blah. And then he literally acts like Deathstroke, does some crazy crap towards the end, and then you're like, oh, well, that issue was mostly useless, but it just showed you him being Deathstroke. So it wasn't useless, it actually got you in there, did something good, some nice setup, and move you along.
And
so Deathstroke was pretty cool.
That's one of the things with a lot of these, new 52 books. If the goal, like they've said, is to bring new people in and to bring people who may be existing comic fans, some Marvel fans, other people, even DC fans who bought other books, to try new things, which a lot of people are, then you've got to give them a lot of information that the fans that have been around for a while are just going to yawn their way through.
Yes.
That was one of the complaints I've heard most about Justice League #1 was, well, I don't need to see the team form. I already know the team.
But this isn't that team. That's what you have to keep reminding yourself.
Just kind of get some sort of temporary amnesia before you start any of these books.
Justice League International was way better than the first Justice League, I thought. Justice League International, I thought, was a riot.
I liked it a lot, but it's not Jim Lee.
Well, as we discussed before the show here, to me it's all about the storytelling. I agree. It doesn't have Jim Lee, but the story was pretty awesome, I thought.
I'm shallow. I like it to look pretty. What can I say?
I like a little substance. I'm okay. You don't have to look pretty. I will come to love the way you look based on other things. And that's what I feel about Justice League International. You know what? Justice League International is that quirky girl in high school that maybe no one else wants to ask her out. Too bad for you, because I did. That's how I feel about Justice League International. I thought it was good.
So you're basically saying Justice League International puts out.
Justice League International totally puts out. Not that I'm one to read and tell. Although that's what we're doing right now. Never mind that. Never you mind.
Not only are we telling, we're recording you telling.
Hey, there's big market for that on the internet.
I just hope Justice League International isn't watching, or it's going to be really pissed.
No, we'll get dirtier next time. So, all right, Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad #1, I thought was
Slutty Harley Quinn.
It's definitely got slutty Harley Quinn. This is one that I've never really gotten into, a lot of the Batman stuff, and but I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this Harley Quinn. That's kind of why I picked it up. I haven't had a chance to read this one yet. Kind of flipping through here. The artwork looks pretty good. This is one of those things that it's going to totally buck expectations because I don't have any. So I'm curious to literally just see what they do with this. This looks like they threw a lot of concepts just out the window and going to try something different. So that should be cool. Then we got Superboy, same thing, kind of throwing out old concepts. Looks like it's doing, obviously keeping the clone thing alive, but this is not Connor.
Right.
So I liked Connor. I grew to really like Connor, actually. So I'm unsure what this is, how this is going to go, but I'm willing to give it a try because I find myself liking Superboy. Then we've got issue 6 of Board Itself. It's finally getting less boring. It has to get somewhere. I thought this issue was pretty good and also had a great moment of Steve Rogers telling off Odin.
Wow.
Odin's clearly not going to put up with that or take that from a mere mortal, but it was still really cool. I thought that was fun. So, Fear Itself is finally getting somewhere, a decent issue. Then we've got American Vampire, Survival of the Fittest. This is that mini-series that Scott Snyder and Sean Murphy have been doing. We're at issue 4 or 5 now. And I think this book's been great. It's been a nice piece to fit right in with the regular series. Scott Snyder, as we go on and on about him every week, just does some great stuff. And this is the one that really kind of got everybody's attention. Who's Scott Snyder? No one had any clue. And then here comes American Vampire. Oh, Stephen King's writing a backup story. And then wow, that Stephen King story was pretty weak. That other thing's awesome. So, yeah, he's been doing a great job with this. And, yeah, it's a mini-series, but I'm just looking at it as an extension of the regular series and just reading it because it's all fit
sort of just in between, things of the other one. And, when Sean Murphy's done with this, can someone get him to draw Animal Man?
You know what? That would be amazing, actually. That would be a real nice fit, I think. His stuff, I think, is great. There was that Hellblazer miniseries he was doing that I wished I had gone back and read.
I never finished Joe the Barbarian. I figured it hit that point where it was not coming out with any regularity. I figured I would just eventually get it.
The story was weak, but the art was incredible.
But it seemed like the story was one of those ones where if you read the first 4 issues, you're still just kind of reading the setup. So I figured this might be something that reads in trade 3 or 4 years later when it actually finishes. It is done now.
It was good. The artwork was what kept me reading. So next up, I've got Fear Itself, Hulk versus Dracula. This is written by Victor Gischler, who another guy we've been saying lots of good things about. He did the Curse of the Mutants, which was a great story with the X-Men. He also wrote that Death of Dracula story. He kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of people too, and everyone was like, "What is this guy doing?"
Knows how to mix superheroes and vampires.
And it looks like, do we have? Trying to see who did the art on this. Looks like they're telling me, is it Ryan Stegman? Ryan Stegman's name is on the cover. He's a local guy from Michigan here. Ryan Stegman did the pencils on this. He's a local guy from Michigan, real nice dude. He also did the cover art for the variant of Amazing Spider-Man 666. So real cool guy. Met him in Toronto Fan Expo a few weeks ago, and he's going to be at the Detroit Fan Fair, which is coming up right around the corner.
So pick this up and go get it signed.
Yeah, absolutely. Pick it up, check it out, have Ryan sign it for you. Next up, we got New Avengers number 16.
Talking Heads?
Let's see. I don't know. Is it the same as it ever was?
Yep.
Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. The days go by.
Yeah.
Michael Bendis keeps doing the same thing.
Isn't this the one where Daredevil joins the team?
Does he officially join the team now?
Yeah, I think so. I've been reading Bendis talking about that.
Oh, okay. So we get to talk to... it looks like some action shots with Daredevil.
Yeah.
At least he's not just talking.
The people talk, and then they cut away to some fighting, and then they talk again.
What was that, Rich Johnston?
That looks like Rich Johnston.
So, yeah, looking forward to that just because it's always a fun read, even if it's literally just talking heads telling stories. It's still, there's some fun stuff, some fun lines in there. I just wish you'd get more people punching each other.
Yeah. Can't they punch each other while they're talking? Spider-Man does it.
Yeah, exactly. Then we've got Sergio Aragone's Funnies, number 3. This is hearkening back to my old days of reading Mad Magazine. You know, it's all that great Sergio Aragoni stuff, which I absolutely am just having a fun time with. What was I watching the other day? I was watching, maybe it was a cartoon or something, that somebody made a Dave Berg joke.
Oh, wow.
Somebody said, oh, you know, it's the lighter side. And then suddenly they did this lighter side comic strip. I'm like, oh my God!
Wow.
That was kind of fun. So again, just hearkening back to these Mad magazines. And I've been liking it. I think it's been fun. It's not really a kid's book. It's just, you know, Aragoni's doing some little... He's an illustrator. He's a cartoonist, and that's what he's doing. He's just doing some fun, cartoony stories. Some of them are actually autobiographical. You know, he'll do a little story in the back that's literally about something from his life. And it's pretty cool. I like it. It's a good book. If you haven't been reading Sergio Aragoni's funnies, just pick it up. No, I haven't got my top yet. I was making sure I wasn't getting out of order here. All right, I got 27, second set. I liked this book. Like we talked before, I like the Golden Age format. I like seeing the book a little bigger. And then I just kind of liked the idea of, you know, the rock star dying at 27, you know, the Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Cobain myth, you know, everyone, all the great rock stars die at 27.
Die at 27?
What's her name? That cokehead mess. Wasn't she 27? Yeah.
So is she going to be in this book?
Anyway, well, those characters aren't in the book. It's just the idea that now he's got these... what is it? I think he's got... he is dying. He's got so many abilities. He's allowed to use this this thing in his chest. I think it was 27 times.
27 times.
And he'd already been using it a bunch of times, so now it's starting to get a little wonky.
Doesn't he get like a different power?
Yep.
Yeah. It's almost like the old Dial H for Hero or
Ben
10 or something like that.
Very much so. But
with rock and roll.
With rock and roll. And it's fun. Again, it's in the Golden Age format. I thought the first miniseries was a good time. I dug it. So that is the bulk of my stack. What do you got there?
Well, I'm going to start off with the bag. Ultimate Spider-Man #1.
They certainly own a bag company.
The third Ultimate Spider-Man #1. This is the new multiracial Spider-Man.
Miles Morales.
I've pretty much dug this book from the beginning. I don't expect to like it any less. I'm hoping he seems to have some slightly different powers than the regular Spider-Man, at least from some of the preview art. So I think it's just kind of interesting that they'll keep the name, keep some of the abilities, make everything else different. You know, really very much the way DC did with the Flash and with Green Lantern and all of those guys in the Silver Age. So I really like that. I think that's the way to take the Ultimate Universe. I mean, the other books are different, new writers, but still the same basic characters. I mean, it's still Thor and Hawkeye and Captain America and the Avengers, and you've got new Wolverine and the X-Men, and then you've got a bunch of non-mutants in the X-Men. I don't know. How does that work? Human Torch is in the X-Men now?
Really?
Yeah. I think everybody's kind of a mutant in the Ultimate Universe. I don't know. I'm not paying attention to that, but this looks like it's a good book. Next up, the first of my new 52s, it is Red Lanterns. You know, I'm a big Green Lantern fan. I've mentioned that many, many times on the show. This is by Peter Milligan. Milligan's a great writer. Sometimes he's doing Hellblazer. He's doing the Justice League Dark.
Okay.
He's known more for being a Vertigo writer than for being a mainstream comics writer, even though he's written plenty of mainstream comics. Usually those are not as strong for me as his Vertigo stuff. He
writes better quirky stuff, like when he turned X-Force into X-Statics.
Yeah.
X-Force wasn't working for him, and he just completely threw all that out and went in a completely different direction.
So, but the Red Lanterns are very popular. I personally have not been as thrilled with them. I mean, I like the Cat.
That's Atrocitus's book. I mean, I've read that first issue, and it's Atrocitus's book.
You get a double-page spread of Cat spitting blood, so that's kind of cool.
I don't know where it's going to go, but I thought the first issue was all right.
But yeah, I mean, I'll give it a shot because it's a Lantern book. Even if it sucks, I'll probably keep buying it because it's a Lantern book. It would have to suck pretty bad for me to drop it.
Sure.
So I'll give it a shot. You know, it's definitely... The Green Lantern stuff in general is staying pretty consistent to where it was pre-Flashpoint. So if you've been reading all along, if you read the War of the Light stuff and you read Brightest or Blackest Night, this will probably be good for you. Next up is Demon Knights. This is by Paul Cornell. This is the demon, but it's set in the past of the DC universe. It's kind of swords and sorcery. There's apparently a tie-in to Stormwatch, which came out last week, also by Paul Cornell. That was actually, of the books that I read in week 1. That was the weakest of the books, I thought. There was a lot of exposition.
A lot of exposition. I hear it's going to continue from Superman too, and we haven't even gotten Superman until week 3.
That was a little odd, but also it's even though it's Stormwatch, in many ways it's really the Authority,
right?
Which Stormwatch eventually morphed into in the Wildstorm universe. They had a very specific, unique voice in Wildstorm, which had a very specific, unique voice, and I'm not sure that it's translating to the DC universe. Okay. But again, that was last week's book. This is the Demon. I love the Demon.
I do too. I've always liked that character.
I like the rhyming, although
I love the rhyming.
A lot of writers struggle with that, and it can be very difficult to read his dialogue when he's in the hands of a weak writer. Paul Cornell, so far, has been a pretty solid writer, except for the Stormwatch book that I just mentioned. So we'll give this a shot. The artwork looks pretty cool too.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm not always a big sword and sorcery type fan, but I'm really appreciating the fact that this new DC universe is giving us a variety of books.
Yes.
And so here we get superheroes with swords, and I like superheroes and swords aren't bad either. Yeah. The next one is Resurrection Man. This is by Dan Abnett, Andy Lanning, and Fernando Dagnino. I bought the first issue of the original Resurrection Man with a little lenticular skull thing on it, and I never picked up another issue. I'm not even sure if I read that one. I might have just picked it up because I picked up anything shiny back then.
People really liked that book. Nobody bought it.
It had a small cult following.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm picking this up is Abnett and Lanning have done such a fantastic job at Marvel with both their street level stuff and their cosmic stuff. So it's like these guys can handle those two extremes. This is an interesting, like he dies, every time he dies he gets a new power.
I believe so.
He comes back with a different power set. So it's kind of an interesting premise, got some good writers. So again, one of the things that's appealing about this relaunch is getting to see these kind of characters in books that I normally wouldn't have tried. If this was just 6 months ago they would have launched a Resurrection Man book, I probably wouldn't have touched it. But now, that at least worked for them. The next of the new 52 is Batman and Robin by Tomasi and Gleason. I'm really intrigued by this one. I liked Batman and Robin after Morrison left. I thought I would wind up dropping it, but these guys actually told some really good stories. And what really intrigues me is this is really the first time we get Bruce with Damian as Robin. I mean, Damian was in the Grant Morrison book before, but he never actually assumed the Robin role until after Bruce died. And then after Bruce came back, this particular Robin was Dick Grayson's sidekick. So I'm curious to what this dynamic of a literal father and son, Batman and Robin, is going to be like. And I'm also curious if basically the DC Universe started 5 years ago, how Damian is 10 years old. Now, I know people have been talking about, well, Batman actually has been around for 10 years, but only became public 5 years ago, and that's kind of interesting, but I also don't like that idea very much because I thought the whole point with Superman is the first one. So, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. Maybe they probably won't even explain it.
Right.
I'm just going to pretend that he's got some kind of freaky super aging power from being around a Lazarus pit. That'll work for me. I like that better.
That could be.
Make your own continuity. That's what it's all about. But anyway, this is certainly the Scott Snyder Batman book is, I think, the big gun of the relaunch.
Sure.
But this, I think, is probably the second one for me. Because I don't think I'm going to get the David Finch book. Kind of gave up on that one. Next up, Journey into Mystery. We've sung this book's praises plenty of times.
Absolutely.
It's basically young Loki. It's in many ways a better book than Thor. I think it's a little bit better characterization. Thor's got great art. It's got big stories. It's got Galactus, and I love Galactus. But this has got Mephisto. And I love Mephisto. Mephisto and Loki seem like a pretty good combination. Looks like Mephisto is sitting at the bar here. So I'll give this one a shot. Next up is Pigs.
Great cover.
I know nothing about this book, or very little about this book. It's an Image #1, but I love this cover. I've read a couple of things by Ben McCool. He's pretty good. I've never heard of this writer or this artist before, but looking through it, it looks pretty solid. I mean, it's not.
It's not Travel Foreman.
It's not Travel Foreman, and it's not Jim Lee. Somewhere in between. But it's got a great cover. It's an Image #1, so we'll give it a shot. Next up, Criminal Last of the Innocent, #4. I'm going to confess to you something. I read the first issue of this and then stopped. Not for any reason other than I just kind of didn't get to it.
Okay.
And these books, the criminal stuff in particular, read really, really much better as one thing. They're a story.
Okay.
Brubaker does a great job of giving you that every issue payoff, but I think here reading the whole thing works much better. But I don't want to switch to trades because the nice thing about these books is they have a lot of nice back matter. They've got letters pages. Every issue has an article written by someone about some sort of pulpy or noir thing. So I actually learned a lot. Learned a lot about film noir and a lot of detective fiction stuff. And he doesn't reprint any of that stuff in the trade paperbacks because he wants that to be a little bonus for people who are supporting the book month to month. So if he's going to give me a little something extra for buying it month to month, I'll buy it month to month and then let it sit there until they're all done. Make my own trade paperback. Next up is Spider Island. All I know is I wish I was in New York and got spider powers because it looks like a lot of fun. And a lot of people in here are having a lot of fun. It's really been a very entertaining story so far.
Yeah.
You get Peter is just pretending that he's got powers along
and
with
he's just running around with no mask on. I love it.
This is great. I love this. His girlfriend's got superpowers. There's lots of neat little moments with the Fantastic Four. They've done a really good job in this particular storyline of bringing the rest of the Marvel Universe in. During that whole period of the Brand New Day, because of the weekly status of the book or near weekly status, Spider-Man was kind of off in his own world.
Yes.
But now that we're in the big time or whatever this era is called, Spider-Man is much more firmly entrenched. The Avengers are in here, and the Fantastic Four are in here, so it really makes a lot of sense. And it's one of those things that just kind of reminds you that the Marvel Universe works really well when it's all kind of a tight, cohesive book. Uncanny X-Force 15, I've sung the praises of this many, many times. They got out of the age of Apocalypse. They came back, and now basically Archangel has assembled the Four Horsemen, and he's basically the new Apocalypse. And they have to try and take him out or save him. You know, the classic conundrum. Right. When the hero becomes a villain, do we save him or do we kill him?
Kill him.
Either way, they'll probably kill
him. Then we hang him.
And then he'll just come back.
I say we let him go.
But this has had fantastic artwork by Jerome Pena. He's really the best artist that's been on this book. There have been some good artists, some weak artists. But when it's Remender and Opeña, the team from Fear Agent, which I never read, but after reading this, I might give it a shot once they put
the book's great.
That big omnibus is supposedly coming. Next up is Unwritten. We've got another sort of throwback, pulpy cover. Honestly, again, I actually haven't read this in 3 months either. I was hoping to try and read it
I'm a little behind.
Today. But again, this is a book that reads really well together.
Yeah.
I could switch to trades, but I like comic books. And then I wouldn't be able to talk about it here with you every month and tell you that I haven't read it. So that's pretty much my stack.
All right. Well, it's kind of funny. We both picked the 2 books that we have epic collections of. Yes. My top pick here is Daredevil #3. Mm-hmm. I'm really liking this book. Daredevil's fun again. Well, and granted, it had been fun and it was solid until the Shadowland stuff busted all that up. But the artwork is great. It feels more classic. Like it feels like a classic comic book.
This is a superhero book.
That cover's fun.
Yeah.
You know, I have a good time when I sit down and read this book, and I'm really excited to sit down and read this book tonight. I do think Mark Waid's doing a great job. You know, just fun stuff. They haven't thrown away everything that they did before.
No, not at all.
There's still people talking, oh, well, maybe Matt's, Daredevil, and all we know. But they're still, while they mention it, they're slowly starting to sweep it under the rug a little bit, and they can still tell stories regardless of whether or not anybody thinks he's Daredevil. Yeah. And I think that works. They're acknowledging it and ignoring it at the same time.
It's refreshing to see this just be a superhero book, a book that's driven by the individual stories, not by this grand sort of character arc, this tragic character arc of Matt Murdock. That was a great run. Really, I mean, the Kevin Smith stuff had a great deal of tragedy.
Sure.
But it was fairly superheroic. I mean, Mysterio was
the villain, exactly. Come on.
But certainly throughout the entire Bendis and Brubaker run, it really, even when there were supervillains, they didn't feel like real Marvel supervillains. And here we've got Claw. You know, these are not. That's not a.
When I saw that on the cover, I was like, "Oh yes!"
You know, this is a classic, traditional, and the blind man versus the master of sound. I mean, it's a great idea. Mark Waid
it's gonna be a great battle.
Is not just able to write these kind of classic throwbacky comics. He actually is a very, very clever writer with a great knowledge of the Marvel universe.
And the art looks solid. Yeah, the art looks really, really fun.
Absolutely fantastic.
That's what Paulo Rivera, right?
Paulo Rivera and Marcos Martin are trading back and forth. I don't know.
Okay, Paulo Rivera's on this one.
Yeah, fantastic book. I wasn't going to get it. I decided after Shadowland that I was done with Daredevil, and then you really dug it, and a lot of people dug it. So I gave issue 1 a shot, and now I'm back on board.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, very.
So what's your top pick there? As if we had to ask.
My top pick, Green Lantern #1. Jeff Johns, Doug Mankey, Christian Alame. This, however, is not Hal Jordan. It's Sinestro, wearing a costume remarkably like the one from the movie. This is picking up where things ended with the War of the Green Lanterns. Hal Jordan, because he killed Krona, was kicked out of the Corps and replaced with Sinestro. The Guardians didn't replace him.
The Ring
itself picked Sinestro. The Guardians don't really like the idea, but they're willing to see how it plays out. Sinestro obviously is one of the greatest Green Lantern villains of all time, and now he's back to being a Green Lantern again. So I'm curious to see where this will go.
I thought it was good.
I'm hoping that they kind of do what Daredevil has done and get off of this sort of big, Blackest Night, Brightest Day, War of the Lanterns. Pretty much since the Sinestro Corps to the present, it's been these big things. I'm really hoping that this is basically getting Green Lantern back to being just a superhero, even if it's not Hal Jordan.
I'll tell you why I liked that book. Yes, it's a continuation of all the things that happened before, but while it sounds like I'm stating the obvious here, while it continues all of those things that happened before, it is also a #1 issue.
Yeah.
It literally, and it feels like a #1 issue. It doesn't feel like the next issue. Yes, all those things happened, but it takes a beat and it takes a moment to set things up. You see Hal on Earth for a little while. You get to, kind of see a little more of his relationship with Carol Ferris. You get to see what's going on with Sinestro.
Cool.
And he's concerned with Korgar and all that sort of stuff. And I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. If you've never read Green Lantern before, if you hadn't read all that other stuff, you can jump right on this and be fine.
Good.
Yeah, I thought it was good and solid.
I mean, this is there at this point. There's only one comic named Green Lantern #1 that I don't own, and that's a Golden Age comic, and I'm never going to own that one. I have reprints, but I've nothing would have kept me from picking this book up, and obviously I'm making it my pick.
Excellent. Well, we got lots of fun stuff to look forward to this week. Yeah. I would like to mention one other thing. Can you hand me that trade paperback right there, that Vertigo trade? This was something that came out from Vertigo and was a hardcover, like 2 years ago?
Oh, yeah, a while back.
And they've just now released it as a paperback, A God Somewhere from Vertigo Comics. A God Somewhere. This was a really good book. It's written by John Arcudi, who wasn't he originally The Mask?
Yeah.
A really interesting superhero book.
Yeah.
I feel like now we've seen so many things that are similar in that it's almost like Project Superman stole some things from it in the Flashpoint story. The character that's almost too powerful and loses his humanity, and then what? Yeah. So good book. If you didn't read that hardcover, if you missed it, whatever, pick up that paperback.
Mm-hmm. And there's obviously some more DC New 52s out this week. Legion Lost, Mr. Terrific, I think, Batwoman, all of those have come out this week. Those are things that I don't normally pick up.
Give them a try.
Not trying them. Certainly some. I know Batwoman, a lot of people have been looking forward to. It's the 3rd time this was solicited.
Yeah. And we're finally going to get it. It's finally here.
So yeah, check those out, and plenty of other stuff here.
And that is your Week in Geek.